What once seemed impossible, states leaving the United States or even joining Canada, is now a real conversation in America, 2025. The idea of an indivisible nation is being challenged as political and cultural divides deepen into chasms. Many Americans now look north, feeling more aligned with Canadian values than those of a distant federal government. This isn't just about red or blue states, it's about identity, governance, and belonging. Join inside the states as we explore 5 U.S. states where the idea of leaving America is gaining traction, and why your state could be next. We'll dive into the history, culture, and political movements fueling this extraordinary debate. Let's begin our journey to the northern frontier of American identity. First up, California, the world's 5th largest economy, a state that often feels more like a nation. Californians see themselves as self-sufficient, frustrated by sending more tax dollars to Washington than they get back. This donor state status fuels resentment, especially when federal policies clash with California's progressive values. California leads on climate action, LGBTQ+ rights, and multiculturalism, often at odds with national trends. The Yes California movement, or Calexit, taps into a sense of exceptionalism and alienation. For some, independence is the dream. For others, joining Canada is a tempting alternative. Canada's universal healthcare, environmental protections, and open immigration policies align closely with California's ideals. The West Coast, from California to British Columbia, already shares a culture of innovation and environmentalism. Economic ties run deep. Tech, entertainment, and agriculture all connect California and Canada. The idea of a West Coast alliance, or even Cascadia, is gaining traction. A Californian in LA might feel more kinship with Vancouver than with rural Alabama. The legal and political hurdles to secession are massive, but the conversation itself signals a foundational crack. When the American dream state dreams of leaving, it's a warning sign for the whole country. Calexit bumper stickers may seem like a novelty, but they represent real disillusionment. For many, the question isn't just could we leave, but do we have any other choice? California's vision of the future looks more Canadian than ever. The state that once defined America now wonders if it's outgrown the nation. The debate is no longer fringe. It's a reflection of deep, growing divides. Could California's golden vision shine brighter under a different flag? The answer may shape the future of the entire country. As the cracks widen, California's next move could redefine what it means to be American. The world is watching to see if the Golden State will lead a new path north. For now, the question lingers. Is California still American, or is it something new? The conversation is just beginning, and it's one the rest of America can't afford to ignore. Now to Vermont, a state with a history of independence, once its own republic from 1777 to 1791. This legacy fuels a modern skepticism of centralized power, whether from London or Washington. The Second Vermont Republic movement, founded in 2003, calls for peaceful secession, arguing the U.S. is too big and corrupt to reform. Vermont's progressive politics, abolishing slavery early, pioneering civil unions, and electing Bernie Sanders, set it apart from the national mainstream. Vermont's values align closely with Canada's universal healthcare, environmental stewardship, and community democracy. The border with Quebec is almost invisible. French is spoken in northern towns and cross-border ties are strong. For many, Montreal feels closer than Washington, both in distance and spirit. The movement doesn't just want to join Canada but to emulate it, envisioning a small, nimble, peaceful nation with close Canadian ties. Vermont's small size is seen as a strength more responsive, less entangled in global conflicts. Economic challenges exist, but advocates believe local focus and Canadian trade could offset federal funding losses. Vermont's push isn't about economic power, but about preserving democratic and communitarian values. The American experiment, they argue, has failed Vermont's ideals. Independence with a friendly northern neighbor feels like a return to roots, not a radical leap. The Green Mountain spirit of rebellion never truly faded. For Vermont, the future may lie in a quiet, principled break, guided by history and a vision of a better way. The question is whether the rest of America is listening. Vermont's story is a reminder. Sometimes the smallest states ask the biggest questions. As the nation fractures, Vermont's independent streak could become a model for others. The border with Canada is more than a line. It's a possible new beginning. In Vermont, the past and future of independence are closer than ever. The Green Mountain Republic may rise again, and this time it might look north. On the West Coast, Washington State is at the heart of the Cascadia movement. A vision for a new nation spanning Washington, Oregon, and British Columbia. Seattle and Vancouver are economic twins, their tech industries, families, and cultures deeply intertwined. For many, the border is just a bureaucratic formality, not a real divide. Cascadia's blue, white, and green flag symbolizes a shared identity rooted in environmentalism, progressivism, and Pacific landscapes. Residents often feel more connected to each other than to distant capitals like Washington, D.C. or Ottawa. National debates seem irrelevant to daily life in the Pacific Northwest. Canada, especially British Columbia, faces similar challenges: housing, diversity, sustainable growth, and often takes similar approaches. A unified Cascadia would be a global powerhouse in tech, green energy, and trade. The idea isn't just a fringe fantasy. It's supported by environmentalists, entrepreneurs, and everyday citizens. Bioregionalism, aligning political boundaries with natural and cultural ones, drives the movement. For some, the first step is simple: Washington joining Canada. This would instantly align the state with a more stable, progressive political system. The border would vanish, creating a powerful new province from Oregon to northern BC. The sense of belonging to a unique region is strong, stronger perhaps than national allegiance. The question, should an arbitrary line dictate the destiny of a region so united by nature and culture? The Cascadian dream is a powerful statement of regional identity. It's about forging a future tied to the forests, mountains, and sea, not just the flag. As the border fades in people's minds, the idea of a new nation or joining Canada grows more real. For Washington, the future may lie not in the stars and stripes but in the blue, white, and green of Cascadia. The Pacific Northwest is already united in spirit. The only question is when the map will catch up. Now, to Maine, the northeastern tip of the U.S., often feeling more Canadian than American. Maine's long border with Quebec and New Brunswick shapes daily life. Cross-border family, work, and culture are the norm. The Acadian heritage and shared industries with Canada run deeper than ties to distant Washington, D.C. Mainers often feel overlooked by federal policymakers, their economic struggles and unique identity ignored. This sense of neglect fuels a quiet, pragmatic consideration. Would Maine be better off looking north? Canada's Atlantic provinces face similar challenges: resource economies, aging populations, and the need for sustainable growth. Closer integration could start with trade and infrastructure, evolving into a deeper Atlantic partnership. In a future of U.S. instability, joining Canada might not seem so radical. Maine's stoic, community-focused culture fits well with Canadian values. The state's independent streak favors local control over distant mandates. As a Canadian province, Maine could gain universal health care, a more stable political system, and new markets for its industries. This isn't a fiery independence movement. It's a practical calculation. Geography and culture may matter more than political history. The real question, does Maine remain America's forgotten corner, or become a valued partner in a new Atlantic Canadian configuration? For Maine, joining Canada would be less a revolution, more a homecoming. Its destiny may always have pointed north. The idea is quiet, but persistent. As America's cracks widen, Maine's future may lie with its Canadian neighbors. The border is just a line, one that could shift with the times. For Maine, the pull of the North grows stronger every year. The state's next chapter may be written in both English and French, and it may begin with a simple question: why not Canada? Finally, Alaska, the most isolated state separated from the lower 48 by hundreds of miles of Canada. Alaska's only road link to the U.S. runs through Canada, making its connection to the rest of America fragile. Its history as a Russian territory and late statehood fuel a fiercely independent identity. Alaskans are self-reliant, skeptical of federal overreach, and frustrated by Washington's management of their resources. The idea of joining Canada is practical. Alaska is physically part of Canada's landmass, and its lifeline runs through Canadian territory. Canada's provinces control their own resources, something many Alaskans crave. As a Canadian province or territory, Alaska could negotiate its own deals, set its own policies, and keep more revenue. Economic ties with Canada are already strong. Resource industries and tourism are deeply connected. Culturally, Alaskans share a frontier mentality with the Yukon and northern BC. In many ways, they have more in common with their Canadian neighbors than with the lower 48. But patriotism and federal spending, especially military, tie Alaska to the U.S. The Alaska Permanent Fund is a cherished institution that could face uncertainty in any transition. Yet, if U.S. policies become hostile to Alaska's interests, the calculation could change. A nationwide ban on oil and gas, for example, could push Alaska to consider Canada seriously. Alaska's story is a test of geography versus allegiance. It's American by law, but North American by geography. Its future may depend on which identity wins out. The question, does Alaska's destiny lie with a distant capital or with its northern neighbors? The answer could reshape the map of North America. For Alaska, the pull of the North is more than a possibility, it's a lifeline. The last frontier may one day look north for its future, and the world will be watching. 5 states, 5 identities, one common thread. The old ties to Washington D.C. are fraying. Economic frustration, principled idealism, regional identity, and pragmatic isolation all fuel the question, does the Union still serve everyone? This isn't just political disagreement, it's a fundamental challenge to national identity. The Canadian option is no longer a joke, it's a real alternative for many. If your state faced the choice, would you stay or join Canada? Let us know in the comments. The political map of North America may be more fluid than we think. These questions are entering the mainstream because the pressures are real and growing. The future of America is uncertain, and the cracks are widening. What once seemed unthinkable is now a real conversation. Thank you for watching, and remember, the borders of tomorrow may be drawn by the choices we make today.